Okay. Even if I am able to speak in different human or angelic languages, if I don't have love, then I'm just a noisy bell or a clanging cymbal. I may have the gift of prophecy, I may understand all the secret things of God and have all knowledge, and I may have faith so great that I can move mountains. But even with all these things, if I don't have love, then I'm nothing. I may give everything I have to feed the poor, and I may even surrender my body as an offering to the world. But I gain nothing by doing these things if I don't have love. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not jealous, it does not boast or brag, it is not proud. Love is not rude, it's not selfish, and it does not get easily angered. Love does not remember the wrongs done against it. Love does not like evil things, but rejoices in the truth, and love patiently accepts all things. Love always trusts, always hopes, and always continues strong. Love never ends. Where there are gifts of gifts of prophecy, they will stop. Where there are gifts of speaking in different languages, they will stop. Where there are gifts of knowledge, they will stop. These things will end because they will no longer be needed. Right now, knowledge and prophecy are incomplete, but when perfection comes, everything will be known. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child, and I made plans like a child. When I became a grown-up, I stopped those childish ways. It's the same with us. Now we see as if we're looking into a dark mirror, but one day in the future we shall see clearly. Now I know only a part, but one day in the future I will know fully, as God has known me. Therefore these three things continue forever: faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. This is the word of the Lord.
So the choir are now moving. We've got, for International Women's Day, we have a guest speaker who needs no introduction.
Shireen grew up in South Africa in a small seaside town. She went to church and developed a faith from a young age, but would say she really came to finding a deeper faith in her early 20s and is still much on the journey. She moved to London after finishing school, where she met her husband Richard on an Alpha course at church. They did not get married until 6 years later, and she completed her studies in fashion design back in South Africa and moved back to London. They lived in London for the next 10 years while Richard completed his medical training and had their 3 children, Luke, Alana, and Noah. They then moved to Bermuda almost 10 years ago. Richard attended St. Mark's when he was younger, and when they moved to Bermuda, they both felt that St. Mark's was where they were called to be. Shireen is one of the graduates of the first St. Melita's course. Shireen has been involved in running Alpha, Exploration of Faith, and led courses along with youth groups in Bermuda and Sunday school. Youth theology, and both encouraging and learning from others on their unique journeys of faith. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm not really a guest because I come here too, so, but thank you for the introduction. I wanted to thank the Guild for inviting me to speak. It's truly always an honor to share, and my prayer is that each of us will be encouraged today in some way on our journeys of faith. So Mothering Sunday, it's a day that conjures up a lot of emotion for most of us, as Helen mentioned earlier. For some, it may bring up a lifetime of beautiful memories and traditions. I recently read an article where the person said that the way they were mothered left them with a desire to find people and nurture them in the same way. They said their mom made it look so easy, as if it were the most treasured prize to love in the way that she did. But for some of us, it may be a reminder of pain, loss, disappointment, or maybe even regret. Some of our deepest wounds have been inflicted by those closest to us. But there is hope for all of us when we look not to mankind, but to Jesus. As we heard earlier, the origins of Mothering Sunday started in the Middle Ages. The custom developed of allowing people who had moved away from where they grew up to visit their mother churches. At the time, it wasn't uncommon for children to leave home to work when they were young as 10. Anybody here 10 or older? Kids? Yeah? 10 years old, Samuel, you'd be working. Imagine you've left home to work and lived somewhere else. I think it sounds completely foreign to us nowadays. Well, Mothering Sunday would be your opportunity to go back and be with your family. Children would pick flowers on the way home to give to their mothers, and this became Mothering Sunday in Britain. But Mothering Sunday was actually meant to be more about the mother love of God than the commercial Mother's Day we have now, which can really feel a bit exclusionary for some of us. Mothers are often described in many different ways based on how they look, how much money they have, what job they have, and what they've achieved in their lives. But for us as Christians, the most important qualities of a mother or mother figure is her Christ-like qualities. As a mom and a woman, as we celebrated International Women's Day this week, we all love being recognized for what we do and how we love and serve those around us and our families. But far more important than being celebrated, it's these godly characteristics that we should be looking to highlight and pass on to others as much as possible. What mothers and women in general do is like looking in a mirror at the nurturing nature of God, how He takes care of us. When you were a baby, your mom or mother figure would have looked after you. They were the ones who made sure you survived once you were out in the world. Do you guys remember the story last week in Sunday school? We learnt about Moses. His mom hid him for 3 months when all the baby boys were being killed, and helped him survive by putting him in that basket. In the same way, when we turn to God, He doesn't leave us alone. He cares for us and looks after us just like a mother, and He does this through His church community. David writes in Psalms, He will cover you with His feathers. He will shelter you with His wings. His faithful promises are your armor and protection. Real-life mothers are a visual picture of God's tangible care for us through the church. When God fills all the space around us, there is very little room for you or me to feel scared or worried. I often say to my children, the only one who's going to be with you through every single part of your life is God. I think that's pretty amazing, as no one else in our lives gets to do that. We can expect the very best from God because He's God. We can always turn to Him in the middle of whatever we are facing. He is with us on the playground, at work, when we drift off to sleep at night. He is always, always with us. So what do? We know that God gives us people around us to help us through things. We see these amazing things in which many of our mothers and the mother figures in our lives love and how they love us. But how do we do it? How do we start loving people in the way we get to be loved? Now, I want to ask all of you, who knows what a language is? How would you describe a language? Anyone? The way we communicate. And what do we have to do if we want to talk to someone who doesn't speak the same language as us? We learn their language. That's right, we have to learn to speak to them in their language. So today I wanted to share with you some practical ways that you can practice loving and caring for those around you with a few of the things we often see our moms doing or we read of the incredible women in the Bible doing. We all feel loved in very different ways, and sometimes it's learning to love others in their language, the way they feel loved, that they can be the best way to make them feel loved. I will need 5 volunteers. You need to stand up here for a little while, so I need 5 volunteers. Oscar, Hazel, no? Anyone? 5 volunteers? Jania, Samuel, come on. Yay. That one. Yeah, you can come. So our first love language is time. Who here loves it when someone spends time with you doing something you enjoy or just being with you? It's pretty special, isn't it? Jesus spent quality time with God, quiet moments praying and listening. From this, he was most effective in spending his ministry with others, either teaching or performing miracles. His quality time with his disciples was incredibly special. They lived together, they ate together, they traveled together. The time he invested bore fruit for many years to come. Jesus also ate countless dinners with people who were deemed not worthy, yet he took time to be with them, listen to them, and show compassion. We can follow what he did, firstly making time to spend with God and listen for his guidance, and then with those around us. Sitting with the person on the playground who's on their own, even if it means giving up the game that you want to play. Asking that person to lunch at work who everyone avoids. We have no idea what others are experiencing and can make a huge difference just by giving up some of our time for them. Your time could be just what somebody needs right now. Okay, next one. Our favorite. Words of affirmation. We use phones for a lot of things, watching videos, posting, playing games, and sending messages. But how often do we use it to encourage others? Just this week, we were listening to the Youth Bible in 1 year, and they suggested that your tongue should have 3 gatekeepers. So before we say anything, we can decide, is it kind? Is it true? And is it necessary? I think that's a pretty good way for all of us to look at how we can encourage others. Sometimes that means speaking the truth, and sometimes it's just encouraging people where they're at. God said, I have loved you with an everlasting love in Jeremiah. In Isaiah, he said, fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. Since you were precious in my sight, you have been honored, and I have loved you. Therefore, I will give men for you and people for your life. As the Father loved me, I also have loved you. Abide in my love. God's words of affirmation go on and on and on. You could read them all day, all year, and never come to the end of God's ministry through words. It says in Proverbs that life and death are in the power of the tongue. That means what you say to people is really important. What an incredible difference you can make to someone's day just by being kind and encouraging. It also says in Proverbs, pleasant words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the body. On to our next act, acts of service. Who wants the pram? Jesus told his disciples in Matthew 20 that he came to the world not to be served, but to serve others. We shouldn't be looking to get for ourselves first. We should always be on the lookout to help others. Let the other person go first in line, offer to help someone up the stairs, get that drink of water for your brother or sister. Just before Jesus' earthly life was finished, he washed his friends' feet as a final act of service. Can you imagine washing someone else's dirty feet? And trust me, feet were much dirtier in those days because they wore sandals and walked a lot. This was a very big act of love on Jesus' part. And finally, of course, Jesus dying on the cross for us was the greatest act of love and service ever. No one else ever has or will ever do that for us. Some of our mothers over the years will probably do a lot for us. Maybe they wash or iron our clothes or buy and prepare our foods. Some mums may even have to tidy up after we've made a mess. Only some, or maybe all. Take note of what your moms are doing and try to do that for others. Let's be a community known for serving and helping others. I think we have some really good examples of that right here in our own church community. Okay, next one, physical touch. Who here likes hugs? I love a good hug, and there is so much healing in touch. There are countless examples of healing touch of Jesus in the Bible. Jesus touched the hand of Peter's mother-in-law and healed her fever. The woman with the issue of blood touched Jesus' garment and was made whole. As Jesus blessed the little children of Judea, he took them up in his arms and put his hands on them. I wanted to share a little story. A few years ago, probably 6 or 7 years ago, when I was teaching Sunday school, it was a Friday night, and I prayed and I just said to God, I just felt that I wanted my kids our life felt very safe, and I wanted to have opportunities for my kids to see others outside of their safe little world. And we stopped on the way to church to pick up a few things at the shop, and this lady came up to the car and said to us, could you give me a lift into town? And I said, I'm really sorry, we're going up to church. And she said, she sort of just stood and looked at me, and I looked at her and I said, do you want to come with us? And she just opened the door and got in the car, and I feel really awful saying this, but my children almost climbed out the other side of the car because she lived on the streets. She hadn't obviously had access to a shower or anything like that. And she came to church with us, and she sat with me, and she sat almost on my lap, but she just kept touching me and just rubbing my arm and touching my face. And I didn't know what to do, and I just sat there praying, and I just felt God saying, this is somebody who no one touches. This is somebody This is somebody who not only needs your money or your food, she just wanted to touch you. She just wanted to sit with you, and she just wanted to be a part of what you were a part of. And I think sometimes we forget this. We see people around us, we walk past them, we might give them the overflow. But I'm not going to lie, that day was really hard for me. It didn't come naturally to me, and I just felt the Lord saying, just touch her, just hold her hand, just be there for her right now. Sorry. Okay, on to our final one. Gift giving. I think this is probably the love language of most of our children. There might be one cookie missing out of that box. In his very first, some of you will be giving chocolates or flowers to your mums today. But of course, whenever we want to show someone love, we can give them a thoughtful gift that doesn't always have to be big or even cost money. You may have heard the saying, it's the thought that counts. In his very first miracle, what some of us may consider a pretty impressive gift, Jesus changed the water and gave the wedding party at Cana wine to drink, apparently the best tasting wine. In Matthew 14, Jesus gave thousands of eager listeners bread and fish to eat when they came to hear him preach and grew hungry. And obviously, as we already spoke about, the greatest gift of all is that Jesus gave his life for us on the cross. He definitely is the best gift giver ever. So there we have it. 5 practical ways that we can think about in loving others. We can give them our time, our words, our service, our touch, and gifts. If mothering is only done by mothers, it will be very hard to make sure that everyone receives the nurturing, the protection, the love, the sacrifice, the guidance that we need to become the people we are meant to be. As a church community, we are called into a role of mothering that sometimes might need to be just as desperate, fierce, loyal, grieving as the mothers we have known. If we as a church truly love the community in which we are situated, just as God loves it, and if we are to be God's holy people for God's needy world, then we will feel the pain of those suffering, and we will be willing to sacrifice something of ourselves in order to see God's purposes for others. We can love our families, our friends, and those we come into contact with, just like Jesus did, and still does. And remember that what makes you feel loved might not be the way someone else feels loved. So you can ask God to guide you in the best way to love others. And today, let's spoil our moms, grannies, aunties, caregivers, and maybe have a go at doing some of the things they so lovingly do for us. Thank you.
Put it down. Yeah, that's fine. A little bit down. Yeah, that's fine.
Good morning, church. Thank you, Mrs. Fulton, for your inspirational talk about motherhood and women. As we all know, Friday was International Women's Day and was widely celebrated around the world. As a child, I have no idea what it is like to be a mother, but your speech showed me the sacrifice it is to being one, but how it is still possible with God's help. It was very inspiring because one day I hope to be a mother myself. Your speech on love languages reminded us that giving our time to God, family, and those around us is so important. That words of affirmation is so important to encourage others. The Bible says life and death is in the power of the tongue. And thank you for reminding us to speak words of love. That acts of service and all things that moms do are so important, and that reminding us how powerful a hug can be. And gift giving, thank that you, Miss Fulton, for this reminder, because we all love gifts. Because of you, the mothers in the audience, including my mother and grandmother, I know it is a task that can be accomplished. Ms. Fulton, thank you for the amazing mother and phenomenal woman that you are. Thank you.